This is the beginning of a series of videos within my ethics playlist that will be about ethical naturalism. Ethical naturalism is it's a question in metaethics. In my ethics playlist, I'm kind of done with. I'm not going to do a whole lot of normative ethics for a while. It's going to be metaethics for a while, and for a good while, it's going to be naturalist ethics. Or the question is, do values and obligations, moral obligations and values, especially, fit into a scientifically based naturalistic view of the world? Now, I'm first going to be talking about naturalistic ethics. This is kind of a little intro that comes from this book. There's an article in here by Sturgeon. Sturgeon is a good place to look for ethical naturalism. It's the third one, I think. Yeah, it's after theological voluntarism. This is the Oxford Handbook of Ethical Theory, edited by Kopp. Yeah, it's Ethical Naturalism by Sturgeon. This is a great resource for that. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about the little stuff out of here that's in this article by Sturgeon. I'm also going to talk about G.E. Moore's where I put it. I don't know where I put it. I'm going to talk about G.E. Moore's part in his part in his book Principia Ethica. He has a book that was famous called Principia Ethica. The first part in there is called Naturalistic Ethics, and in there he gives the naturalistic fallacy. And I'm gonna have one or two videos about that, and I'm gonna talk about more. And also, I'll probably talk about Jonathan Dancy, who has an article also in here that's called non-naturalist ethics. I think, yeah. No, it's just called non-naturalism by Dancy. And also in this book, this is the Oxford Readings in Philosophy, Ethical Theory. This is a great resource. This is edited by Rachel's. This one I actually do not own. Got it from the library. There's lots of great stuff in this anthology. You know, it has two sections, just like this one about Kopp, on normative and then meta ethics. There's another article in here by Sturgeon called Moral Explanations, which I will be going into as well, because that's a good thing for naturalism as well. And then otherwise than that, I'm not a whole lot sure if I will have other stuff on naturalism or not. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, I'm going to kind of go into this a little bit. This is a theory in metaethics that relates to moral realism and moral relativism. Personally, in metaethics, I think that I'm not going to take the realist or the objectivist position, nor will I take the relativist one. I personally think that I'm somewhat of a idealist on the subject, but I honestly think about ethics in terms of the way this guy thinks about it. Werner Marx. I don't think about ethics metaphysically. I think about it in terms of character, I guess. And character can be a relative or a objective concept, but I think a character is more like a standard. It's more like a way that has come from us. It's come from us and our minds, and the standard of virtue or character, excellent character by Arte, comes from things that we've done, that people have done. Not to say that we're intrinsically good or anything, but there have been some people in human existence who have done good things through moral and virtuous character. So I'm thinking about the way we should act in terms of virtuous character as standards for how we should act, but not to think of those as relative or objective. They're pretty much coming from us, is really what they are. That's my real argument on that, but that's kind of a normative thing. Anyway, so the reason that naturalism can relate to relativism and realism is because it's kind of a reducibility thing. How can moral concepts like goodness and rightness be reducible or identical? I've been thinking about this, like, Sturgeon says that the question is, do values and obligations that are moral, specifically, fit into a scientifically based naturalistic view of the world? And this is to exclude supernatural or magical things. It's kind of excluding things like God. It's kind of thinking about things in terms of, the way science sees things and the way things are naturally in the world, kind of thing. Ethical properties like goodness of people, character traits like rightness or wrongness, as natural properties, as some general sort of property, are investigated by the sciences. So, what Moore does in when he tries to do his little naturalistic fallacy thing, he does like goodness. What is goodness equal to? He uses the identity symbol. What is goodness identical to? And it has to be identical to some sort of natural property of how things are. Goodness is a moral word, and it could possibly be reducible to. I'm thinking about that as reducible, but I don't want to think about it that way because it's not thought of that way. But I'm thinking of it as reducible. Is goodness reducible? But I don't think that's not a good way to think of it. But so it's sciences like this natural property that we're gonna equate with goodness and rightness. It has to be able to be investigated by sciences. It has to be natural within the world. Natural properties to be investigated the same way as scientific ones are. So it's a natural property that is identical to a moral property is to be able to be investigated by sciences. Like I said, it can be entailed from moral realism, in that moral realism would work really well with naturalism, because realism says that these moral duties or character traits or whatever you want to call them are objective. They are objectively real and not dependent on our minds. and thus they are a part of this natural world. So naturalism would fit really, really well together with realism. It can also fit really, really well with relativism. If you want to hear about relativism, go read an article by Ruth Benedict. She's a sociologist, not really an ethicist, but she's a sociologist who kind of has little studies. The article I read was in the ethical anthology that's behind my iPad here. That's by Poyman on moral relativism, and she kind of shows in that article. I actually have a video on that. She kind of shows how relative to certain societies, cultures, there's morals that are only relative to those societies. So, relativism does kind of show, the way that the world is. So, realism and relativism do, attempt at showing the way that the world is scientifically, naturally. I think that they're both right for different reasons. I've talked about relativism a lot more than I have realism in itself, aside from Kant and Ross and deontology. Rejects beliefs in supernatural, i.e. the world of God or gods. Ethical naturalism can also be entailed from, J.L. Mackie. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He has a paper called the Subjectivity of Values. It's in here. He's a moral nihilist. He rejects naturalism, of course, because I think if you're a nihilist, that's a way more extreme thing. You can't really be a naturalist if you're a nihilist. If you're going to be a naturalist, you have to kind of show somewhere that there's some kind of morality somewhere, some more kind of how you explain it. But if you're a nihilist like Mackie is, or was, I think I'm pretty sure he's dead. See, J.L. Mackie, Subjectivity of Values. Anyway, this is a really good book. I got this from I checked this out from the library. I'm gonna try and get into it pretty well, because lots of really good stuff in here that I don't know, that I don't have in the ethical anthologies I do have. So this is some really good things. So I guess I want to think about that. Like, what is it possible to really have a moral property like goodness or rightness and equate that with a property that's natural to the world, scientifically or naturally speaking? This is a very interesting thing, I think. So, let me know your thoughts. On the next video on naturalism, I'm going to talk about more in his naturalistic fallacy, and then either in that video or a video following it, I'm going to talk about problems with that, and then I'll probably talk about Sturgeon's moral explanations in this that comes out of this book. And then I'll probably talk about non-naturalism. And then probably a video about what my thoughs are on it. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, and if you have anything to say about naturalism, if you have a view on it, or if you know anything about it, then I'd be happy to hear it.